And I initiated this movie, Interstellar. Spielberg dropped out, and we got Chris to join as the director. So he decided to cooperate with us. He was worried that I would play a role of a policeman, telling him what he could do and what he couldn't do. Where I told him, you have to abandon the laws of physics when you depict trip through the wormhole because it's just too boring. The physics is there, but I would bet 1% maximum of the audience even notices that. And you have to dig very deep to see it. Christopher Nolan and I discussed how do we handle the slingshot issue. He had learned by then that I should go do a real calculation to be absolutely sure. But in this particular case, I told him I didn't have to do a real calculation. Romilly makes a remark about we can do a slingshot around that neutron star in order to get to Miller's planet. Now, in reality, you need to do a slingshot around a black hole to get to Miller's planet.
Which moment from Interstellar production do you remember the most?
Kip Thorne, Nobel Prize winner and the scientific force behind Interstellar. The only person whose work has earned both an Oscar and a Nobel Prize.
Which film simplification of physics bored you the most?
In Interstellar?
In Interstellar, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't worry about any simplification of physics. The physics is all there, but much of it is hidden, and you have to dig very deep to see it. So let me give you an example. To get in this film, to get to Miller's planet, which is the water planet that is very close to the horizon of the black hole Gargantua, the only way to get there is to do gravitational slingshot around a small black hole. There's no other way to slow down enough as you approach the planet. The only way to do it is by gravity. In the movie, Christopher Nolan and I discussed, well, how do we handle the slingshot issue? And we agreed that one thing is to get the idea of this gravitational slingshot into the movie very early on. And so you see a gravitational slingshot is used to get the Cooper and the Endurance spacecraft to the vicinity of Jupiter. Doing a slingshot, I've forgotten, or I think it's around Mercury, around Venus, or around Mars. I don't remember which one. So the idea of the slingshot is in the movie early on. And then when they get to the vicinity of Gargantua, Romilly, who's a physicist who's on this trip along with Cooper, Romilly makes a remark about we can do a slingshot around that neutron star in order to get to Miller's planet. Now, in reality, you need to do a slingshot around a black hole to get to Miller's planet. The neutron star won't quite do it, but Christopher Nolan didn't want to confuse the audience by having an extra black hole there at that point, because the black hole was just a very new thing in the film at that moment. And so we agreed he would use a slingshot around a neutron star. But in there is the idea, Romilly makes it very clear, using a slingshot basically to slow down as you near the planet. The physics is there, but I would bet 1% maximum of the audience even notices that. But that's the character of Christopher Nolan's films. They're filled with just a great richness of ideas that have all been put there very carefully, so that if you go to see the film 5 times, you learn something new still on the 5th time or the 6th time or the 7th time.
Do you know how many days passed since the premiere of Interstellar on Miller's planet?
Well,
I know.
Till now, it's a little over 1 day.
1 day and 31 minutes.
Okay, yeah.
I have a very interesting question to you. The water planet Miller has big tsunami waves. Could the black hole's gravity really create such a high walls of water.
So it's not being created by the gravity of it's a very indirect process. So the issue is that the planet is close enough to the black hole Gargantua, and the black hole Gargantua has just the right mass to deform the planet somewhat, so it's sort of like this.
Yeah.
It's not round. And then the pull of the gravitational pull of Gargantua on the planet causes the planet to want to face the Gargantua. It's elongated pointing toward Gargantua. But in terms of planetary time, it's not been very long, maybe only a few months since the planet got into the vicinity of our Gargantua. So it's not yet pointing directly there. It's swinging back and forth and slowly slowing down. So it's like a pendulum swinging, and the swing of the pendulum dies out due to friction. The planet is swinging back and forth like this under the gravitational pull of Gargantua. And as it swings, the water sloshes on the planet, and it forms these waves.
It's amazing that you remember any single details of that production.
Well, these details are fundamental physics, and it's the fundamental physics that underlies the movie. And this was all done very carefully so that the numbers all work out. The other thing about this is that the swinging period, which you can calculate, you choose the mass of Gargantua such that the planet is mildly deformed. But then the swinging period turns out to be about an hour, and that's the interval between the waves on the planet. You see two waves, and they're separated by about 1 hour.
Subscribe now so you won't miss our upcoming Kip Thorne interviews on black holes, gravitational waves, the birth of the universe, and much more.
In the plot of Interstellar, I think the time difference it's enormous. Is there a realistic mission scenario in which astronauts would return to Earth decades younger than their peers?
Well, I mean, if you had adequate technology, this could be a realistic thing, but we don't have anything like the technology that would be required, nor do we have any black holes with a required mass. You have to have a black hole with a mass that is big enough that they don't get torn apart when they're that close to the black hole, that the astronauts don't get torn apart.
Could you really send a message from inside a black hole like Cooper did taught his daughter's watch?
Let me begin answering that by saying that early in my discussions about this movie with Christopher Nolan, he told me he wanted to have an ending for the movie that was very mysterious, even more mysterious than the ending of the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, Stanley Kubrick's great film. And so he does. It's very hard to understand the ending of the movie. And later on, when I decided I would write a book about the movie, we agreed that I would explain it in the book, but that's the only place you'll ever understand the ending of the movie. So he's not sending a message from inside a black hole. What happens is when he falls into the black hole, as he gets very close to the, quote, gentle singularity, it's called that by Romilly, he is captured by a spacecraft called the Tesseract, which travels in the fifth dimension. So it's a spacecraft with 4 space dimensions. And it has the three space dimensions of our universe, plus the fifth dimension of the fourth space dimension of the bulk. He's carried by that spacecraft into the bulk, into the higher dimension, into the fifth dimension, it's called in the movie, and carried back to Earth. And although the distance back to Earth in our universe is billions of light years, the distance back to Earth in the bulk is far less. It's less than the distance between the Earth and the Sun. He's able to get back in just a few minutes, and then the spacecraft docks beside his daughter's bedroom in the fifth dimension. Yeah. And all of the action that you see in the last part of the movie is there.
Of the Interstellar movie, right?
In the last part of the movie, everything is happening. He's right there by his daughter's bedroom and sending signals to his daughter.
Firstly, I thought that this is the metaphor of the hypothesis of infinite copies of us, you know. And later I understood the division. Could a wormhole near Saturn form naturally in space?
No, we don't. We're almost certain that wormholes cannot form naturally in space ever. If they exist, they have to be made by a very advanced civilization.
Which moment from Interstellar production do you remember the most? One single moment.
I would say the moment where Cooper plunges into the black hole, and where you see him plunge into the black hole, go through the horizon, turn around and look back and see the universe above him. I mean, this is how the computer simulations show what he would see, and you actually see that there.
Exactly. Did any new physics effects appear during Interstellar production that nobody expected?
No, but what we did do is the computer programs that were devised by Oliver James at DNEG, the Double Negative Visual Effects team, they became very powerful tools for studying new physics. So the new physics didn't show up in the movies, in the movie Interstellar, but once these computer codes had been conceived and developed, they enabled us to then see details of this gravitational lensing, details of formation of images, distortion of images, merging of images, breaking images apart that occur around a black hole as the camera moves around the black hole, and you see really quite startling kinds of behaviors of images. And we got really some marvelous simulations that show precisely how light behaves, and then we're able to verify a theory associated with that called the theory of caustics.
Is it true that working on Interstellar you set Christopher Nolan to conditions, no violations of the physics law and any speculations, so should be fully compliant with science?
I proposed that that this should be the guiding rules, and he agreed to them as so long as they did not get in the way of making a good movie. And so, of course, I was a little worried that he would violate them in order to make a good movie. He was worried that I would play a role of a policeman telling him what he could do and what he couldn't do. But after about an hour or two of conversation, it became clear that we were going to work together very effectively, and it would not be difficult to reach agreement on things. And so did come one point where I told him, you have to abandon the laws of physics when you depict the trip through the wormhole, because it's just too boring. And so we talked about in what way would he abandon the strict predictions, and so that's the one place where I told him, yes, I propose that you abandon our guidelines. In all other cases, we found ways to make a great movie, a very interesting movie, which stayed within those guidelines.
And probably you spent 2 weeks trying to enforce him to throw our idea of faster than light flight.
Yeah. Well, but we reached agreement. No, the issue was I didn't spend 2 weeks trying to enforce him. He had learned by then that I should go do a real calculation to be absolutely sure. But in this particular case, I told him I didn't have to do a real calculation, and but he gave me a week. I think it was 1 week, but to think about it further, and then we had a further discussion, and so he agreed that we would not use faster than light travel.
Which wild film idea could make it to the screen today under our actual knowledge about the reality, about physics, how the universe works?
Well, I think there are a variety of things. There are really a huge number of amazing phenomena that we see in the universe, and of course there are a lot of things that do make it to the screen. But I think issues in the birth of the universe, issues in the collisions of black holes, which have not made it to the Hollywood screen yet, they almost certainly will.
Maybe you should do this.
Yeah. I have other things, maybe 20 years from now, after I finish the other projects I'm working on.
By the way, why you decided to cooperate with Nolan?
I watched, Linda Obst and I initiated this movie, Interstellar, and she brought Christopher Nolan on board to direct the movie. So he decided to cooperate with us on a movie that we had already started. But he was the very best choice we could possibly have had to do this movie with. He brought so much of his own to the movie that went well beyond what Linda and I had conceived. We conceived the movie. Then Steven Spielberg oversaw it in the early creative phase, the initial screenwriting phase, and she and Linda and Steven brought Christopher Nolan's brother, Jonathan Nolan, on board to write the screenplay. And we went through 3 drafts of the screenplay with Jonathan Nolan, and then Spielberg dropped out, and we got Chris to join in as the director. And Chris was just fabulous on this film. Spielberg said to us that we got the right director for this movie, and we really did. Steven had done the science fiction movies before. His heart was not in this movie the way that Nolan's heart was in this movie. He was not just totally consumed by it the way Nolan was. And Nolan just made a fabulous movie. I mean, it's in this last week, New York Times has done and identified the 10 best movies. I've forgotten of over how many years, and Interstellar is one of them.
Is it true that when Carl Sagan was writing a novel, Contact, he repeatedly asked you for an idea of realistic cosmic tunnel?
What he asked me for was this, that he said he had in his novel, he had his heroine, Eleanor Arroway is the name of the heroine in the movie and in the novel, had Eleanor Arroway go through a black hole to get to the vicinity of the star Vega. And I told him that you can't do that. You can't go through a black hole and come out the other side. And so I suggested to him he should use a wormhole. And so that's really, I think, the first use of a wormhole in science fiction films, as far as I'm aware. But it was as a substitute for a black hole, which is what he was originally using.
Do arts inspired you stronger, deeper than physics?
No, but they inspire me greatly. And the combination I find to be very powerful and a wonderful opportunity to be creative in different ways. And and I find my collaboration with artists, artists said broadly, artists including filmmakers, musicians, painters, and so forth. I find those collaborations to be very interesting, very fulfilling, because they are so creating themselves, and they can ask questions of me that make me think deeply about things I wouldn't have thought about otherwise.
Have you ever asked yourself why science? Why you are scientists?
No, I'm a scientist because very early on I discovered that science has enormous power for explaining the universe and power for underlying technology that makes the world better. It is far more powerful in these ways than any other approach, than religion, for example. Uh, and uh, and working with it and having the beauty of new understandings of the universe, the beauty of new technologies. People associated with me basically pioneered quantum technology, quantum sensing, things that are a big deal now in private companies. I mean, it's just fun. It's a huge amount of fun, and it really has an impact. And so, why would I do anything else?